Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Real Property Law section of the State Bar, I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's CLE. I would particularly like to thank our sponsor for today, National Title Insurance of New York, for making today's webinar possible. I'm Matthew Totten with the Gilroy firm, today's host, and I litigate real property title disputes and landlord-tenant matters. I'd first like to start off and introduce you to the first section of today's CLE, which is Title Insurance, the game show, hosted by Kyle and Amanda with Callaway Title and Escrow. Kyle is an attorney with Callaway Title. He's very active in the real property world. As some of you may have seen his very colorful presentations before. Kyle is the president-elect of the Southeast Land Title Association. Amanda is also with Callaway Title. She currently serves as the secretary-treasurer of the real property law section with the State Bar, and is the immediate past president of the Southeast Land Title Association. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Kyle.
Hey, everybody. Coming to you live, not from Hollywood, California, Ackworth, Georgia, and Dunwoody, Georgia. This is Title Insurance, the game show. I'm going to be your co-host, Kyle J. Lipstick. With me always, thank God always for you who are watching at home, the lovely Amanda Callaway. Today we're gonna try to mix it up, have some fun, hopefully not get run out of town on a rail. Title Insurance, the game show, when Amanda and I were putting together the concept, we're seeing a lot of different things in not only just the remote work environment, the COVID environment, just things that are happening in the crazy world of not only commercial real estate, but real estate in general right now. So we took some of those things we were seeing, condensed them into questions, built them into the seminar. There's some fun in here too as well. So we hope everybody really enjoys it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Let me click on that. And there we go. Am I sharing? No, let's do that. Let's actually do this one. Sorry, guys. Let's go back to the Zoom. Share the screen. Here we go. So we've got the Kahoot up here. This game is called Kahoot. The way we're going to play it today is everyone. Yeah.
All we're seeing is your face.
Oh, I picked the wrong screen. Okay. Stop the share again. Man, this went so much better the first time.
I know this worked great in the rehearsal.
Yeah. Let's try it this way. Okay. Is that better?
There we go.
Okay. So now we've got everybody seeing the Kahoot. All right, what we want everybody to do, and it's better to do it on a different device. So if you're watching your Zoom on your desktop computer, grab your phone, go either download the Kahoot app, take a minute and do that, or go to www.kahoot.it, and you can put in that game number, and you'll be able to play along with us. The game keeps the score. But it's better to do it on another device. So I'm going to give everybody a second. There's, I think, 273 of you. So I'm looking for 273 different people to join in right now.
So y'all, if you only have your desktop, but you have two screens, the way I did this when I was practicing was I went to the website and I put the Kahoot on one screen and the Zoom on another screen. But I screwed up at the beginning and I got confused. Because when we start playing, there'll be multiple choice questions and you click on your answer.
Yeah. So
I was clicking on the screen in the Zoom and I couldn't figure out why my answers weren't registering. So just keep in mind, click your answers on the actual screen, whatever that may be, your phone, another screen on your desktop or a laptop or whatever, where you're actually playing the game. So
all right, so I want everybody to, we got 47 in so far. This is great.
Oh yeah,
David Weissman is Slow Hand. That's a great nickname. We're seeing some good nicknames on there. Remember, it's fun to play on the device. I've logged in and I'm going to play along at home too. So it's 58. We'll give you a couple more minutes. The good thing about this Kahoot is it tracks the answers. It's really interactive and it's good to do in a Zoom. So hopefully nobody's having a problem. We got about 60 folks in right now.
I did want to send out a little PSA to all of our real estate folks while we're waiting for everybody to get loaded in. Just checking on y'all. The market is nuts. I'm sure y'all are feeling it the way we are. Hang in there. You're doing a great job. I say that to myself every morning.
All right, everybody see, you put that PIN number in. Amanda, we're still showing the screen with the PIN number on there.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me turn the music up a little bit so we can get the little bit of the background music. Okay. Got 95 in, 94 in. Some folks are just kind of watching. Let's go ahead and get started with this group. Now, remember, as with anything we do, this is a game show, so you are playing for cash and prizes. The top score at the end of today, you'll have to identify yourself in the email to me or Amanda if you're not using your original name. But go ahead and do that, and we have a top cash and wonderful awards prize to give out to the top winner of this. So there's some questions that are some basic trivia. There's also some good real estate questions in here. We got 99. I think that's a good time to start. There's 100. I don't think we can wait too much longer because we need to, about 5 minutes in. Let's go ahead and get it started.
Cool.
Here we go. Last chance saloon. All right, we're getting started. Here's our Kahoot. Title Insurance, the game show. And we're going to go ahead and get it started. There'll be a couple of easy questions here right off the rip to get us started. Remember as you're playing, keep your score on the screen that doesn't have the zoom on it. If not, you're going to be frustrated because you're going to start yelling at the screen and saying, I'm picking it, and it isn't working. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and start. Amanda, why don't you read this first one, or I'll read this first one. It's just an easy softball to get us started and to see how to play the game. Here we go.
Okay.
Question number 1. What is the first soft drink in space? Got a lot of answers coming in. 80. We're right there at the top end. 93, 95. I think we're locked in.
Probably had some more people. Don't hit it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Wait.
Let it run, because I bet you we had some more people loading. Because it should automatically go to should reveal the answer once everybody gets in there, if it's before the time runs out.
But if somebody takes a phone call or something, they could be waiting on an answer, and we did a minute for everyone. So for these kind of snowballs, I'm going to go ahead and hit it. The answer, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola. So that'll give you, see how the game's played. You get your clues down here. Go ahead and click on the top one on your device. And the cool thing about this is it keeps the score for us. MLS, top score going for. Cat Lady Lawyer doing well. Michelle C, love it. Amanda, why don't you give us this next one?
All right. Okay. Which is the only edible food that never goes bad? Ketchup, honey, rice, or pasta? In case some of y'all didn't quite get with the program the first time. Another easy practice one.
Answers are coming in.
I love your graphic, Kyle.
Oh yeah, Mr. Bean, he loves that chicken. All right. That's about every 106, 108. See where we're at. Honey.
Honey. All right. Most people got it.
Honey. All right, Amanda, you're going to take us into the real questions. Guys, this is a real part of the game show. So let's focus in. Amanda's going to take us on the run to begin. Here we go.
All right.
Scores. Michelle C moving up. Cat Lady Lawyer doing well as well. Here we go.
The basic Georgia title insurance policy ensures that the subject property has access. False. You need to add an access endorsement for access coverage. True. If there's no exception on Schedule B for no apparent means of access. False. Access is not covered by a title policy. Or true, because you cannot insure landlocked property.
Got About 80, 85 answers.
It's always makes me want to sing the Jeopardy,
The
singing it in my head.
basic Georgia title policy ensures that the subject property has access. 10 seconds. Got a few last ones in, and let's see where we're at.
All right. Y'all did pretty good, 46%. Or is that 46 people? I don't know. So true, as long as there's no exception on Schedule B for no apparent means of access. The basic policy, before you add any endorsement to it, does give a very general access coverage that the property does have access. The access endorsements, the 17 and the 17.1, give a more specialized or specified access coverage. So a lot of people prefer to add that access endorsement because it takes you from just a general that the property is not landlocked to a coverage that recites that the property abuts a named or named roads, that those roads are publicly maintained and open, and that the property has the right to use the existing curb cuts. And of course, you guys probably know that, there are two options for your access endorsement when it deals with pedestrian and vehicular access. You've got your access endorsement, which is direct, the 17, that ensures you have direct access to a publicly maintained road or roads, depending on how your property is configured, or the 17.1, which comes into use when access is provided by virtue of an insured access endorsement and a pertinent access endorsement. For example, you've got an outlot that lies within a shopping center. The outlot is all we're purchasing or insuring or getting a loan on, so that the access is across other portions of the center, which is privately owned, to get to a public roadway. So in that case, we'd use the 17.1. Some of these other wrong answers are worth talking about for a minute. For example, false, you need an access endorsement to add access coverage. We talked about that's not true. The access endorsement adds additional coverage or more specific coverage. True, because you cannot insure landlocked property. While not advisable, you can, as long as there's an appropriate exception raised on Schedule B. That the property has no apparent means of access. I've only done that a few times, and the purpose was that our insured was already the owner of adjoining property, but they had not put over which they were intending to use to have access. And then false, access is not covered by a title policy. We know, of course, that it is. It's one of the elements that is insured by title insurance.
Excellent. Let's see how the scoring turned out on that. All right, we got some
up trees.
Yeah, moving on. All right, so Amanda's going to move into a couple of questions about leases next. So we're going to go ahead and move on there.
All right, the following documentation is sufficient to ensure a lease as a subordinate matter on a loan policy. A wet ink signed SNDA in recordable format and recorded at closing. A PDF or other electronic version of a signed SNDA, but not recordable. An affidavit confirming that all leases are subordinate to the insured debt, or any one of the above referenced documents.
It's a tough one because you're like, is it going to be the one that's everything, or did Amanda get tricky and try to knock us out with one? And leases are one of those things that off record, on record, what's the right way to handle it? So it's something that we run up against quite a bit, and the title companies have a pretty definite perspective on it.
All right, so any one of the above referenced documents will work. These options are applicable in different scenarios. Of course, the best option is to get that wet ink signed SNDA in recordable format, delivered in escrow for closing, and we send it to record along with the rest of the documents when we close. But that's not always as easy as it sounds, or really not always necessary, or not always what the parties prefer. So we can insure a lease as a subordinate matter, Schedule B2 of a lender's policy, if we see a signed PDF of the SNDA between the landlord, the tenant, and the lender. The reason being that in order for that SNDA to be enforceable between the parties to the document, it just has to be signed. It doesn't have to be recorded. The recordation gives notice to the world that the SNDA exists. But in order to effectuate a subordination, all that's required is execution of the document. And in order for us to get comfortable ensuring that it's subordinate, we just need to see that that document was signed. The other option, which is an affidavit confirming that all leases are subordinate to the insured debt, comes into play when your lease has self-subordinating language. Therefore, an SNDA wouldn't necessarily be appropriate or necessary as an additional thing to run down or bother your tenant with. In that case, it is definitely preferable from the title agent's perspective, title company's perspective, that not only we see the lease to confirm that that self-subordinating language exists, but also have a representation in the affidavit delivered at closing by the property owner, confirming that the lease or leases are in fact self-subordinating pursuant to their own terms, because we want to make sure that as of the date of closing, there's been no amendment or change to those leases. And our landlord is the party that would be appropriate to, have that knowledge.
All right, let's check the scoring. Oh man, it's thrill a minute, moving up. All right, let's go ahead and ask another question. Amanda, you have another question about leases.
All right, the following will enable your title agent to remove an exception for a recorded memo of lease. The fact that that there is a stated expiration date, which is already passed. That means in the memo, there's a stated expiration date, and that date is passed. Or an email from the prior tenant stating that the lease has expired, or an affidavit confirming that the lease has expired, or a statement from a surveyor that the tenant has vacated the property. So this is really talking about, once y'all load your answers in, where we go run title and we come across recorded memos of leases or a recorded memo of lease in the chain of title that was previously recorded. And we're trying to remove it because parties believe that it no longer encumbers the property.
All right, we got 106, 7, 8, 9 in, and the answer is?
Cool. An affidavit confirming that the lease has expired. This is an affidavit that comes from the property owner. You'll have to forgive us if our answers seem a little bit short. This Kahoot has a limitation on characters.
Yeah, there was a format limitation.
Longer.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times we'll get this where there's a memo of lease or a short form lease, and within the terms of that recorded document, it says that expires in 2003 and there's a 5-year extension, and that's already run. And Amanda, Kyle, can't y'all do math? Like, this is gone. Well, the reason that we can't just be done at that point is because there's no requirement that if that lease were to have been extended, that a recorded notice of extension be filed. So from just looking at the record, we don't know 100% for sure that that lease wasn't subsequently extended, renewed. So that's why we have to get a statement from the current owner confirming for us that the lease has in fact expired and it's of no further force and effect against the property, or some other language that the owner can get comfortable with, that we can also be comfortable with, indicating that this tenant is no longer there. The other options on here, an email from the prior tenant stating that lease has expired, doesn't really get me very excited about feeling warm and fuzzy. An email, I'd much rather have an affidavit from the owner of the property. And then of course, just because a surveyor says something's not physically located on the property doesn't mean that the right with respect to the property has expired. Kind of a sidebar, I was on a conference call earlier this morning dealing with a similar issue with respect to a sanitary sewer easement. Easement's old and vague, and the seller went out and had some work done to check underneath the ground. Kyle, what's that thing called? Where they bring out the equipment and
Yes.
put it under the ground, sending out vibrations. Anyway,
Something,
I'm blanking on what it's called. But anyway, they had it checked and they come back and they said, well, we've confirmed that there's no sewer line on this property. So take out the easement. And underwriter came back and said, not so fast, because just because there's not a sewer line doesn't mean that the right to put in the sewer line doesn't still exist. Similarly, with a lease, just because the tenant's not currently in possession of the property, if the lease has not been terminated or otherwise expired, the right still exists. And that's really what we're looking for when it comes to title insurance, is the rights of others with respect to the insured property.
Absolutely. All right, let's check our scoring. TD4 moving up. Tree's looking good as well. I believe some of these have got everyone right. That's pretty solid. Amanda, you're going to continue on, and next we're moving into the world of mechanics liens.
Ooh.
Here's our next question.
Okay. A materialman has this many days following the last day that they performed work to file a valid lien. 120 days, 90 days, 95 days, or 60 days. So this is the time period between the last day that they did work or delivered materials and when their ability to file a lien goes away, expired. That picture looks really dangerous.
So, I mean, like these numbers, we're always like, which one is it? Is this the 60-day one? Is this the 120 days? There's so many different time periods when you're talking about mechanics liens. So making sure the actual number of days following the last day they perform work, is essential for, so many times when we're trying to get things ready to close and getting the timing right on that.
Okay. All right. Most of y'all know your mechanics lien. So that's right, 90 days. So that means 90 days from the last day when they finished their job. That's when the clock starts ticking for that potential lien filing period. And this is significant for a couple of reasons. One, in those title affidavits that we like to see signed at closing, in Georgia, we want to see a statement indicating that there's been no work done on the property in the past 90 days. Our form says 95 days because we like to try and buy ourselves a few more days cushion. But really the hard and fast rule, no work in the past 90 days, which has not been completed and paid for in full. That gives us comfort that there are no potential lien claimants hanging out there. It also comes into play. I'm working on a transaction right now where the property owner went ahead and started construction prior to closing their construction loan financing. So they took, their own equity and put it in and did some grading work and some foundation work. So now we have this priority issue because, of course, the incoming construction lender wants to be insured in first position. So we have to work with the borrower to identify all the potential lien claimants. So that means everybody who either has started work and hasn't completed the job and their 90-day lien period has expired, or otherwise evidenced waiver of lien rights and proof of payment. But the question has come up on my current deal because we have several subcontractors who've done a good bit of work, been paid for a good bit of work, and haven't been out on the job for over 90 days, but they're not done with the job yet. We've got to get some other things completed on construction in order for them to come back and finish out their part of the contract, some of these subs. So the question came up, well, they haven't been there for 90 days. Does that get us, get those guys off the list from anybody we have to go run down a subordination from or some sort of final lien waiver? And the answer is no, because that 90-day time period hasn't started ticking yet, because they haven't had their quote unquote last day on the job when they, said they're done. So that's when your 90 days starts ticking.
All right, let's check our scores. Oh man, TD4 is on fire. Highest answer streak of 6. Solid work. Amanda's gonna continue with the mechanics lien questions. This is kind of a variant of that. Amanda, let's go ahead and go with the next one.
All right. A materialman has this many days after they sign a final lien waiver to file an affidavit of non-payment. 120 days, 90 days, 95 days, or 60 days. This is talking about, per our Georgia statute, how long after that final lien waiver is signed can the mechanic or materialman who signed it come back and say, actually, I didn't get paid. Give me my lien right back.
All right, we got 104 answers in. 6, 7, I think there's about 9 of us. 8, 9, 10. Let's go and finish this up.
All right. 60 days.
Everybody seemed to know that one pretty well.
Nice. So 60 days after they sign that final lien waiver, that materialman, mechanics person can come back and file an affidavit of non-payment and re-enliven their lien right, or their right to file a lien. And this really means that, your GC may go collect up final lien waivers from the subs, or the property owner may go collecting up final lien waivers in exchange for handing over a check, or saying the check's in the mail, or saying I'll send you a wire. So this is to protect that potential lien claimant if the check bounces, the wire never shows up, to get us past that chicken and egg issue of give me your lien waiver, give me my money, give me your lien waiver, give me your money. So it's something we have to be cognizant of when we're underwriting mechanics lien risk, because, sometimes we'll just get presented with, hey, here are all these final lien waivers. Aren't we done? Well, if those lien waivers were signed less than 60 days ago, then no, we're not quite done, because we also have to get confirmation that the payment and the amount recited on that final lien waiver has been paid. So either a copy of a canceled check, or a wire confirmation, or some sort of affirmation from the potential lien claimant that they have in fact been paid in full. So we don't have that risk of, even though we saw that final lien waiver at closing, we were still in that 60-day period, and post-closing they came back and popped us with that affidavit of non-payment, and we've got all of a sudden a mechanics lien issue.
All right, we're going to check our scores.
Oh.
Okay, B moving up. All right, next we're going to talk about bonding off a mechanics lien.
All right, I promise we're going to get off mechanics lien soon. But when bonding off a mechanics lien in accordance with OCGA 4414-364, the bond amount is equal to the amount claimed under the lien, double the amount claimed under the lien, triple the amount claimed under the lien, or the fair market value of the lien property as shown on the county tax assessor's record. Now, y'all, if I had a little few more characters on this question, I would have specified commercial property, bonding off a lien that's not for a primary residence, because there is a little bit of a nuance there in our statute. But just to be clear, the question is about not a lien on your primary residence. This is about a lien on commercial property.
All right, almost there. Five, 4, 3, last chance saloon. There we go, one more in.
All right, double the amount claimed under the lien. That's right. So if you have a mechanics lien that's clouding up the title, But for one reason or another, it's not going to be paid at closing. And we need to find a way to ensure without exception to it. We have our lovely OCGA 44-14-364, which will permit the property owner to go and bond that lien off. In order to bond it off, it's got to be double the amount of the face amount of lien. As I was mentioning when the question was running, there's a carve out for primary residence, in which case I think it only has to be the face amount of the lien, but don't quote me on that part because I don't do residential real estate. But on commercial, it's double the amount claimed under the lien. This is a useful tool. You know, sometimes a lien gets filed because there's some sort of dispute going on between the GC and a sub, or a property owner and a general contractor, and they need to close the deal. Oftentimes it's a loan situation. So rather than making them go and pay off the lien and give up the ability to continue to fight with that lien claimant, it can instead get bonded off, and we can move along with our transaction and ensure title without exception.
All right, let's check our scores. All right, KP staying in there. They're in the top spot. All right, I'll give Amanda a break. We have kind of a fun one here. I'll go ahead and take this one, give her a break for a moment. Which team, and this is a college team, has had the most players drafted in the first round of the NFL draft? Is it Alabama, USC, Southern California? This is all time. Ohio State or Miami?
I can't believe it's not UGA.
I know, or Georgia Tech. Come on.
We knew it wasn't going to be Georgia Tech.
Yeah, we know. All right, 102. Let's kind of make it go fast here because we're 30 minutes in. And all right, we were looking for Southern California. Everybody thought Alabama. That was a good one, but it was Southern California. Let's check our scores. All
Yes,
right,
speed it up.
All right, Amanda, you go ahead and take this next one.
All right. The following is not a current ALTA land under development endorsement. The ALTA 3.2, the ALTA 28.3 for encroachments, the ALTA 17.3 access, the ALTA 35.3 mineral rights. So we're talking about land under development endorsements. These are the ones where property has not yet been developed into whatever the intended development is when we close, but we got a site plan. So we give coverages that indicate once built in accordance with the attached site plan or the reference site plan, we are giving you XYZ coverage with respect to zoning, encroachments, access, mineral rights. So one of these is not available.
Not like the others. Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Get your answers in.
All right, there is no ALTA 17.3 access land under development endorsement. There is no land under development access endorsement at this time. That means if when we close, you don't have an existing access way, curb cut, but you've got a site plan that shows where the curb cuts are going to be, there is not an endorsement that will allow us to give you access, future access coverage at this time. Seen one creative one time in South Carolina, but really, I think ALTA should work on that because it comes up a lot. All right, let's keep it moving, Kyle.
All right, let's keep it moving. Here's our scores. KP staying in top. I'll take the next one. Question 12. How many different ALTA zoning endorsements are available? We're talking about the types of zoning endorsement. You got the unimproved, you got the improved, you got the future improved, you got the, so you're thinking about the zoning endorsements. We didn't give much time to that question. All right, there's 5. There's 5 different variations of the zoning endorsement, the ALTA zoning endorsement. You have the 3.0, which is your unimproved land. Identifies the zoning classification and the use of the property. You have the 3.1, the completed structure. That's where the property is built. You identify that it's compliant with the 5 items. You identify the use and you identify the zoning designation. You have your 3.2, your land under development. That's one of those under development endorsements, like Amanda just talked about that. You'll need that letter from your architect, engineer, identifying them when built in accordance with the site plan, the certified site plan that you have, that the property as it's to be constructed will be compliant with zoning. We've got the 3.3, which is the non-conforming use. We used to give this kind of as part up under the 3.1, would make a notation that it was non-conforming. Alta helped us out. And now the 3.3 is now what we can give when we have a non-conforming use. And then lastly, we have the zoning 3.4, which is the no zoning classification. So the 3.0, the 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4, 5 different zoning endorsements are currently available from Alta that we're able to give in this market. So let's check our scoring. All right, we got some more folks moving up. Big Kyle number 2. I wonder who that is. All right. Amanda, let's why don't you take this next one?
All right. If I order my hash browns scattered, smothered, chunked, and capped, what toppings am I ordering? Cheese, onions, and peppers, cheese, onions, and tomatoes, onions, ham, and peppers, onions, ham, and mushrooms. Now we're getting into the really important question.
Yeah, the real substantive part of the presentation. We felt like mixing it up a little bit would at least keep you awake.
Yeah.
All right, 80. Getting the 90s, I can skip it. Come on. And
All right. Onions, ham, and mushrooms. I've never gotten mushrooms on mine. It kind of sounds scary. But
check our scores. That took me down to 4th. AP staying in top. Amanda, you have a couple of questions about leaseholds, so let's go ahead and get into those.
do it. Okay. Issuance of the Alta 13-06 endorsement, the leasehold owner's endorsement, requires the following. The land insured in the leasehold policy must be commercial real estate. The land insured must be improved property, not unimproved or raw land. Schedule A cannot include any other estate to be insured other than the leasehold estate, or the leasehold must be evidenced in the record, either by a recorded lease or a recorded memo of lease. Sorry, I was a little limited on my characters on these.
Yeah, we had to shorten them up a little bit, so we apologize for the abbreviation.
So the leasehold context in commercial comes up for us, not only with insuring retail type of leases, but also on the development authority. We call them a sale leaseback type of deal, where we're insuring a ground lease. Okay, so the answer is leasehold evidenced in the record, either by a recorded lease or a recorded memorandum of lease, or sometimes called a short form lease. So although, as we talked about earlier, when we were talking about the leasehold exceptions, in order to create a valid leasehold interest, you don't have to record. However, in order to create an insurable interest in real property, you do have to have a recording. So if you have a leasehold interest that you wish to insure, then you must record either the entire lease, which most people don't want to do, obviously, because, confidentiality. But you need to record a memorandum of lease or a short form lease that sets out basic items such as landlord, tenant, the leasehold premises, the term, those sorts of things. And let's see if I want to say anything about my wrong answers. No, all those are also wrong. It can be residential property. It can be improved or unimproved property. And you can insure additional or other interest on Schedule A. So in some cases, you may have a leasehold interest in the dirt and a fee interest in the improvements located on the property, or you may have a leasehold interest and an easement interest insured because your lease also grants an easement over other lands of the landlord for things like access and utilities.
All right, let's check our scores. There we go. Jay Maurer gives it up. And Amanda, you have a question about a leasehold loan here.
All right. So in addition to the requirement that the lease be evidenced of record, and also 13.1, the leasehold loan endorsement also requires confirmation that the tenant is permitted to encumber the leasehold estate, confirmation that there is no debt encumbering the fee interest of the landlord, confirmation that the term of the leasehold debt is at least 5 years, or confirmation that the real property taxes have been paid current. So this is, again, if we're going to insure a leasehold lender. So I've got a tenant and they're going to go encumber their leasehold interest with their own debt, and their lender wants a title policy. In addition to the fact that we're going to say, number one, that lease has to be recorded, or a memo of lease or short form lease has to be recorded. This is an additional requirement to ensure that leasehold lender. 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think we about got them all in.
How are we doing on time? All right.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Okay. Confirmation that the tenant is permitted to encumber the leasehold estate. That's right. So we need to get comfortable that the lease, that the lease permits the tenant to go and get a loan and secure that loan by their leasehold interest. The last thing we want to do is go insuring a debt that's not permitted. So it doesn't matter if there's debt on the fee estate. In this case, that doesn't come into play as far as the insurability of a leasehold debt. And we don't care about the term. It doesn't have, there's no 5-year minimum. And certainly property taxes are what they are, and we'll take an exception separately accordingly.
All right, here's our scoring. All right, Amanda, I'll take this next one. It's another kind of fun one. The biggest selling music single of all time is Thriller, Kindle in the Wind, I Will Always Love You, or My Heart Will Go On.
Are you going to sing the right answer to it?
No, I was hoping that there would be some real estate like songs in here, like Oceanfront Property or Grand Tour or something like that.
The Queen of My Double Wide Trailer.
Yeah, Queen of My Double Wide Trailer. That's a great one. We didn't do any. We didn't do any questions about trailers, which is a shame.
Mm.
All right, Candle in the Wind. Everybody was still stuck on Thriller. Candle in the Wind. That's as of today.
That's
All right.
Okay.
Pick our scores. Oof, that hurt some folks. All right, I'll take this one. Which of these is typically not required when an individual dies owning property? A will, articles of incorporation, petition to probate, or letters testamentary. This is what we're talking about from a title standpoint, the things we're looking for when we run the title and we've got some sort of tip off that the individual holding title is dead. And let's say that they die in the county that the property is located in. We go check the probate records. We're looking for a number of things. There's certain things from a title standpoint we're looking for. So several of those are here. There's one kind of red herring. We're looking for 109, 110 to be in. I think everybody's almost in. Skip ahead. Articles of incorporation. Everybody kind of jumped on that one. That was a throwaway. From a title standpoint, we want to see the will because we want to see that the individual had power to, or the party who the individual empowers to act, whether that be the trustee, executor, or whatever, has power to sell the property. We want to see a petition of probate to see that the heirs were served and signed off. We want to see letters testamentary issued where the party who's given that the ability to move is given that by the court as well. So those are the items we're looking for when individual dies owning property. Seeing a lot of that these days. Seeing a lot of we're having multiple estates. Something that I'm seeing a lot of is where you've got your kind of dad mom scenario where one of them didn't rely on the fact that they didn't have an estate. So dad will die without an estate. Mom will have an estate, and then mom's executor will be trying to convey the property. There'll be a little bit of cleanup where title was vested in mom and dad, and digging into those estates, and then knowing that the party who had the was empowered to act, and could speak to the entire interest is incredibly important, and we're seeing quite a bit. We'll check our scores. Here we go. Stella moving up. All right, next question I'll take as well, again about surveys. Which of these is not typically required for a current accurate land survey? We're looking for a north arrow, valid point of beginning, sewer easement, or dimensions for each side of the land. Which of these is not typically required for a current accurate survey? One of the things we're seeing a lot of right now, because like Amanda said, timelines are so stretched, not only in commercial, I think in all real estate right now. You of those that are listening right now that are clients of ours are, every day saying, how can we move these titles up? Surveyors are pressed. And one of the tools that's being utilized is an older survey and a no change affidavit. Well, we've got to look at that original survey, and we've got to look to make sure that that survey has the necessary survey elements to be acceptable. And that it has all the elements that make it truly a current accurate survey, or even not current, but a survey that would be acceptable for use with a survey affidavit. The answer we needed to have, okay. Sewer easement doesn't need to be on there. Survey needs to have a north arrow. It needs to have a valid point of beginning, an origin point. I looked at one this week that was beautiful survey, had all the dimensions on it, was located on a right of way, had no point of beginning, had a point of beginning labeled, but no discernible point that was findable. Two land lots, or intersection of two land lots, intersection of roads, land lot and a road, something that will be a definable point of commencement to run to a point of beginning. And then also survey needs to have dimensions on each side of the land. We had one recently where somebody was wanting to utilize a survey, and so a survey from the past, we reviewed it and looked at it. One of the sides was missing. The surveyor from the past hadn't included the dimensions to the call from one of the sides, and that was problematic for us to rely on the survey with the no change affidavit. We'll check our scoring. Mr. Malware moves up, or Miss Malware moves up. Here we go. Move on to the next question. Kind of close on time. Recorded affidavits should include all include the following except for. Recorded affidavits should all include the following except for name of the current owner of the property, cross-reference to the recorded documents relating to the affidavit, notary signature and seal, or tax parcel. And those are affidavits Mr. Giuliani has there for us. So, I don't think Amanda and I have given kind of any type of presentation where we didn't talk about the benefits of affidavits relating to title, to clear basic issues, affidavits, scrivener's affidavits when you screw something up. They're just a great tool of ours to be able to, correct defects we find in the record. Well, Georgia gives us the benefit in the statute to outline what that affidavit needs to have. And one of those things is tax parcel, not required. We got to have the current owner of the property identified on the affidavit. There should be a cross-reference to the recorded documents relating to the affidavit. That's not just in the body of the affidavit. Those documents being cross-referenced gets the affidavit in the chain of title. And it being an affidavit, being a sworn statement, needs a notary signature and seal. Sometimes we see them witnessed. Don't necessarily need to see that, but definitely needs that notary signature and seal. Tax parcel, so many documents are requiring a tax parcel now. An affidavit's not necessarily something that would be a deed of conveyance and does not require a tax parcel. But it could be, if the matter being a fight over relates to the tax parcel, it could include that. So this was kind of a sneaky question, but tax parcel is not required for an affidavit. All right, let's see. We'll continue. Let's check our scores. All right, it's a foot race. There's some folks in there looking for this cash and prizes. All right, we'll continue. I'll take number 20. When a beneficial easement is discovered as part of the title search, a diligent examiner should notify the clerk that the document was properly filed. Maybe you should thank your clerk when you see the documents so properly filed. Exclude it from the title report. Run a limited search on the survey and estate, or should you do a cartwheel? We're getting close to time, so if y'all could throw those answers in there. Run a limited search on the survey and estate. So when we pick up a beneficial easement or a pertinent easement, as part of a title search, a diligent examiner should immediately go ahead and run the servient tract looking for any liens that would prime that easement estate. Because as part of, discovering the pertinent easement, especially from a title insurance standpoint, 99 times out of 100, that's going to want to be insured. And the ability to insure that is to confirm that there's no liens that prime the easement that would cut it off if that property was subsequently foreclosed on. So when you're doing your title search and you pick up the pertinent easement, you should absolutely run a limited on the serving estate looking for liens that prime your easement. Definitely not excluded from the report. Love you folks that want to see me do a cartwheel. That'll be Amanda and Kyle 2022. All right. So Amanda, why don't you take this next one? We'll blast through a few of these.
All right. Which country borders 14 nations and crosses 8 time zones? Is it Russia, Slovenia, Serbia, or Slovakia? I've never been to any of these.
Get them in. Looking for about 111, I think, is everybody that's playing. 6, 7, 8, 9. Come on. Oh. Russia is correct.
All right. Next.
Next. Let's check our scores.
No
Now
check.
we're on top. All right, I'll take this one. As of September 9th, 2021, that's today, Ron, remote online notary, is acceptable for use for real estate documents in Georgia. Okay to use, but only if the grantor's name is Ron. A hotly debated topic that seems to change by the minute. The most talked about Ron in Atlanta since Ron, Mexico. Let's see. I don't think there would be a seminar if we didn't talk about Ron, but really what we're talking about Ron here is, let's go ahead and skip ahead. It is a hotly debated topic. Ron is not, we're using REN right now for, or modified REN, depending on where you sit in the country, to, for closings. Ron is not been allowed currently. It's not been decided on as of yet. It's something that's, I don't think there can be a seminar or there's a meeting of real estate minded people that Ron doesn't come up. And I'm with Paula Roethlisberger chairing the commercial seminar in November, and we're hoping to have kind of a Ron roundtable as part of that to kind of give the status of Ron and where we're at with it in Georgia. But right now, it is not currently the law in Georgia. Now, are we seeing Ron documents in Georgia? We sure are. I know that there are lien releases that the clerks have accepted that have online notaries on them, and we're picking those up in the record and sending them over to the company. Title standards give us some help with regard to that, about improperly filed like cancellations of deed secured debt and liens and the like. So the title company on a case-by-case basis are mostly analyzing those to see if they're deemed to be acceptable or need to be re-recorded. But we're definitely seeing Ron, and it's happening all around us, but it is not currently the status quo here in Georgia.
So Kyle, we got a question that was, doesn't COVID permit for Ron? So I think there needs to be a distinction made here. No, we have the temporary order, which permits REN, which is remote in-person notarization, which is basically like a Zoom call, but paper is present and the signatory actually puts pen to paper instead of signing remotely. And then that piece in front of the notary on some sort of teleconference. And then that piece of paper has to make its way to the witness and to the notary, who also subsequently put pen to paper. Different from Ron, which would a permit for an electronic type of signature and stamp.
Right. And REN here in Georgia is, all the title companies have affidavits and the like that need to be done. And there's a monetary limitation on the size of transactions that can utilize REN as well. So yeah. All hot issues and definitely something that's going on and we're up against almost every day.
Right. Keep it moving. We got our
keep it moving. You got it. Question 23, this endorsement, known as the identified risk endorsement, is often used to provide affirmative coverage. Alta 33, 34, 35, 36. So back when Marcus first started teaching me and Amanda how to peddle this insurance, one of the things that we would do would be when you had any type of affirmative coverage, clients say, I want affirmative coverage over that item. We accept to it, and then we put a note up underneath the exception, and it said something like the company insures the insured against any loss, cost, or damage resulting from court of competent jurisdiction, or whatever the language would be with regard to the note. Title companies these days really aren't liking affirmative coverage to be done in the title commitment. They like it to be done by a separate endorsement. What is that identified risk endorsement that most affirmative coverage is provided under these days? It is the Alta 34, known as the identified risk endorsement. Amanda was speaking when we were kind of going, doing like a pre-run of this as to why the title companies are liking to do that. Amanda, you want to go into that?
Oh, sure. So when I asked why can't I just put my note under my exception, just like I always have? The answer was that Schedule B of the policy is the place where we take away coverage. We take exceptions. Endorsements are places where we add coverage. So it doesn't make logical sense to give affirmative coverage and additional coverage on Schedule B of the policy. It belongs in an endorsement. So that's why this change was made to the practice of where instead of using those notes underneath the exceptions to give affirmative coverage, now it belongs in an endorsement.
All right, we'll keep it moving. Check our scores. Nice. Treese in the lead. All right, question 24. Before insuring former railroad right-of-way, the lines need to be decommissioned by the Choo-Choo Collective, Surface Transportation Board, Railroad Right-of-Way Registry, or the Commission for Rail Affairs. So many times these days you're seeing railroad lines, especially in our great cities, that are former lines, rail transport lines, that are being conveyed to third parties. You go run the title and you see that the railroad owns the property, but there's a governmental entity that needs to decommission the lines and basically consent and confirm your transfer. What entity is that? There's nothing in the record that really shows that. That entity is the Surface Transportation Board, but good guess on the Choo-Choo Collective. That's what I would have called it. Commission for Rail Affairs is a good one too. So many times when we're doing these railroad lines being conveyed to third parties, the title companies want us to take exception to the rights of Surface Transportation Board or other types of exceptions that don't appear anywhere in the record, because these guys have rights under federal law as it relates to these lines. So you always got to be cognizant of that and make sure the lines have been decommissioned by the Surface Transportation Board. All right, we're going to go quickly.
Next.
Which of the below will allow the standard survey exceptions to be deleted in a policy? A current survey, taking exception to all matters occurring subsequent to a prior survey, a survey no change affidavit based on a prior survey, or all of the above. All right. So again, we're seeing a lot of instances where it's not always somebody getting, just because of timing and so much of the short time frames we have these days. People don't have time for, and the deal cycle is so much smaller to get a current survey, even though it's the best possible thing you could do with regard to, purchasing and getting loans on real estate. They want to take the previous survey, and if there's been no change, get a no change affidavit on a prior survey. But there are a couple other methods you can do. So let's see. The other one being, you can take exception to all matters occurring subsequent to a prior survey. That would be where you didn't get a survey no change affidavit. All the above. Let's check our scores. All right, Tree staying in the top, Bill right there in second. All right, we can rock through these. These last few were kind of throwaways. So we've used up our time. Let's speed round. So get your answers in quickly.
What is the Earth's largest? Oh, go ahead.
Go. Earth's largest continent. Africa, South America, Asia, Antarctica.
All right, close it down after 30 seconds. Only give them,
All
oh,
right.
that was fast. All right.
Uh-oh, Bill moved up. Get your answers in quick. Next question, Amanda, you take it.
Area 51 is located in which state? New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, Colorado. Give them 30 seconds, Kyle.
All right.
Dun, dun, dun. Is that you at a,
I wish.
what's it called out there in the desert? I can't think of it. Burning Man.
There you go. All right.
All right.
Let's do it. Nevada.
Nevada.
Oh, New
All right.
Mexico.
Next.
All right. Next, Amanda, go with it.
All right.
Cat lady lawyer moves back up.
A group of ravens is known as an unkindness, a murder, a shrewdness, or a cauldron. My husband's a huge bird nerd, so I got this question from him.
Carol Clark would appreciate this one. Didn't she have a presentation all about birds or not too long ago? It was all bird names. All right, 102 in. Let's see. Correct answer. Unkindness. Murderous crows. Murder crows. All
Interesting.
right, Amanda, let's get this next one.
All right. What is the nearest planet to the sun? Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter. Dun, dun, dun. Is this our second to last question, Kyle?
One more after this one. This is the
Okay.
penultimate question. And yes, I recently learned what penultimate means.
All right.
Right? Mercury.
Mercury.
All right, Amanda, bring us home. Let's check our scores. And that took me out of the top four. All right, let's see if Bill can hang on.
How many teeth does an adult human have? 34, 30, 32, or 38? Dang, some people come quick with these answers.
I'm telling you, they want this cash and prizes.
Doing this made me really have some bad flashbacks to studying for the multi-state bar exam.
Huh.
All the multiple choice questions.
All right. 32. We were looking for 32. All right.
Final scores.
Final scores. We'll see who wins it. Third place, 19 out of 21. Loftus. Great name. Philip H. comes in second. Number one, 21 correct out of 29.
Bill.
Bill, if you are the Bill and can identify yourself, shoot me or Amanda an email. That's Amanda C at titlelaw.com or Kyle L at titlelaw.com. And we will promptly see that your cash and prizes are delivered out to you. If you have any questions, concerns, cat calls, or anything when we presented today, Amanda and I'd love to talk about it further. Thank you to Kent and everybody for allowing us to present again. We hope it made you smile a little bit and added a little bit of value to a Thursday afternoon. We want you to hang on because Rick Diamond's about to curl your ears with some of this technology you're about to hear. But we just want to thank you all for listening to us, and it's a pleasure. Amanda?
Thank you, guys. See you soon.
Thanks, Kyle and Amanda, for your wonderful presentation and livening things up. Again, I want to thank National Title Insurance of New York for sponsoring this and facilitating this CLE webinar today. And on that note, I would like to introduce you to Rick Diamond of National Title Insurance of New York. Rick is a VP of technology with the company based out of Boston. Rick is the external solutions partner with Fidelity, particularly focusing on IT initiatives with the company's agents nationwide on data security, compliance, and IT trends in the title industry. Rick, it's all yours.
Rick, you are muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're good. Thanks.
All right. Can you see my screen properly now?
We can.
Excellent. Well, what I said was, is I have no idea how I'm going to follow up that game. I'm not an attorney and I didn't get too many of those right. I did get the Mercury one right though. All right, so we're going to talk about keeping your agency secure in the digital age. And as Kyle and Amanda were talking about, they did mention Ron a little bit. And, at some point, Ron may come into Georgia, but it's not there quite yet. But even with that being said, we are moving towards much more digital process. And with that, of course, and since I'm an IT guy and I talk about security a lot, becomes a lot of security risks that go along with that. And there are a lot of things that you have to do to be prepared, not only to go down the digital route, but to make sure you are safeguarding all the people involved in the process, including yourself, when you're doing these digital transactions. So let's make sure we can advance. Here we go. So we think it's time for you to come and sit at the big kids table. Yeah, so cybersecurity is a huge, huge deal. And when I talk about this to agents, and I do talk about it a lot, is I tell them that if you are not treating security, if you are not putting the resources toward security that you do to keep your lights on in your practice or to pay your employees, you're in trouble because it is now that important. Many of you may have heard about the CloudStar ransomware problem that happened at the end of July, which is still going on today. Now, here's an IT company that touts its security, and they were hit by ransomware. Now, honestly, I don't know if they did anything wrong. Anybody can be attacked by ransomware, even an IT company like this. And you hear about companies all over the world and here in the United States being hacked by ransomware, and they spend millions and millions of dollars in security and they still get hacked. Well, the bad actors, the bad people have figured out this industry. And they know that many of the attorneys are keeping lots and lots of money around, and they're keeping a treasure trove of data, social security numbers, credit card numbers, things like that. And what they also believe is that they aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing to protect themselves and, of course, protect their clients. So we are living in an expanding digital world, and this need for access is largely driven by and fed by technology adoption and trying to get to the 100% secure rating. But as we know, you're never going to be 100% sure. The bad guys, the bad actors always seem to be one step ahead. But that doesn't mean that you can't try to stay up with that as best as you can. And that is reaching out to the security experts. So you got to remember that it is changing the customer expectations, and you must quickly adapt to the technology acceleration of the industry. Well, let me go to the next screen, because here's a quick question for you. Who led the digital transformation of your company? A, CEO, B, CTO. You guys all knew the answer. COVID-19, or the creeping crud, as I call it. If we could come up with a single silver lining to the pandemic, it is the acceleration of technology in this industry, and it is the acceleration of adoption of technology in the industry. And you heard Kyle and Amanda talking about RIN. I'm here in Massachusetts. That's what we have currently today as well. And this was in a response to people saying, hey, look, I don't want to have to go into my attorney's office to a closing. I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. Me myself, in April 2020, I did a refinance, and it was early April. I had no idea what to expect out there. We were hearing all kinds of things out in the world. And I actually went into my attorney's office being very nervous, but there was really no reason to do it these days. So again, if I have to pick a silver lining to this, it is the adoption of technology. So let's talk about the 5 pillars of a digital environment. And what I mean by a digital environment is that is the adoption, the use, the implementation of technologies to assist your office in providing to your clients, whether that's the buyers, sellers, the real estate brokers, the lenders, even the title insurance companies, right? It's providing them this digital experience because consumers are getting more knowledgeable here. And ultimately, what you have to do is close on your client's terms, how they want you to close, what makes them comfortable, what is easy for them. That's going to drive business your way, right? If it's easier for the consumer to work with you, they're going to come back. If it's easy for the real estate broker to work with you, they're going to come back. If it's easy for the lenders to work with you, they're going to come back. And that's what you've got to be thinking. And that's why you have to create this environment of the digital experience, which I call stack. And what I mean by that? Well, again, since I'm an IT guy and security is very high on my list of the things that everybody has to think about. Of course, it is a number one. The more the process goes digital, the more the need for enhanced security. Right? And it's first for a reason. And it's not just because I am an IT guy and I do talk about this stuff, is because none of the other stuff that you do ultimately matters if your security is not in place. Because something is going to happen. There's going to be a breach. There's going to be ransomware. There's going to be wire fraud. Once those things happen, it can shut you down. So security must be at the top of your mind. The T in the stack, technology. An agent or an attorney must have the right technology in place to streamline the process and to satisfy all participants in the transactions, right? All the participants in the transactions that I talked about, right? You need to know what technologies are available to you, of course, and everybody involved in the transaction needs to know what technologies are available to them as well. The A in stack is advertising or marketing. What I tell agents is, hey, look, you spent a lot of time, you spent a lot of resources in updating the technology in your office, to getting yourself more prepared for the digital transaction, to make the process easier for everybody involved. You need to promote that. You need to promote that to the clients that you're dealing with. You need to promote it to the real estate agent that you're dealing with. And even more importantly, you need to promote it to the lender, that you are ready for whatever comes down the pipe from them, whatever platform they want you to use, whatever digital process they want you to use. You have to let them know that you're ready. And many of our agents do the things that they're supposed to be doing, but they don't promote it. I think it's an important part of creating this digital environment. Now, the C in stack is communication. As an agent becomes or goes more digital, proper communication becomes even more important, especially around texting and status. So the younger crowd these days, and which is not me, but I do a lot of texting. Certainly my children do a lot of texting. These people want to get their information quicker. They want to get it without picking up the phone. They want to get it without sending an email. They want the attorney involved in the process to be more proactive in sending me status updates about what's going on in the transaction. Real estate brokers want that as well. Of course, they want to know when they're going to get paid. They want to know when the transaction is going to close. So as part of this digital environment that they're talking about, you must embrace and you must start doing a better job of communication. It becomes more important than ever. As more consumers become more familiar with the technologies out there, they're going to expect this. They don't want to pick up the phone and call. They don't want to email. They want instant gratification of texting and knowing, hey, do I have to bring this to the closing? What is this all about? When is the closing date? Has it changed? All those things has to be easily communicated back and forth with all the members of the transaction. And the last part of this, of the digital environment of stack, is knowledge. an agent or attorney must make sure all the employees are properly trained and embrace the new digital culture. So you get the benefit of listening to us on this webinar today. And hopefully you've learned a lot. I know I certainly learned a lot with the game that we just played. But if you learn anything from my presentation, you pick up one or two things, you're here, you're listening, that's great. Make sure everybody in your office understands what it takes to create this digital environment and what it takes to make everybody comfortable in this digital environment. And everybody knows what their responsibilities are to not only making the transaction better for everybody involved, but certainly their responsibilities are to making the process more secure. The issue that I hear a lot when talking to attorneys out there in the world about the digital transaction or the digital process or the e-mortgage, whatever you want to call it, is that most everybody I speak to, they understand what a digital process is. They get it. They certainly know RIM, they certainly know RON, they certainly know what a digital transaction is. Where I see agents struggling and attorneys struggling is knowing what technologies are available. So whatever production system that you may be using, whether it's SoftPro, Resware, or Ampress, whatever, they have a tremendous amount of integrations. They have a tremendous amount of functionality that I would bet you probably don't even know about. So as an attorney using these production systems and making sure that I'm getting ready for this digital environment, I'd ask my production system, whoever that is, hey, what's available to me out there? What integrations do you have? What digital technology is available to make my process better? And take the time and learn, because that's the gap that I see. So let's switch gears a little bit now that we kind of understand what the digital environment, and let's talk about cybersecurity best practices for business, right? Again, as you go down this digital road, again, security at top of mind. So use a firewall. A firewall provides a barrier between the data and cyber criminals, right? So of all these things that I'm going to go through, and it's not just on this slide, but other slides as well, these are things that you should be taking note of to have a discussion with your IT people. Hey, do I have a proper firewall in place? Do I have a firewall in place at all? Am I protected from outside threats? These are discussions that you must have with your IT professionals, whoever is maintaining your network. Document your cybersecurity policies. Cybersecurity is one area that's essential to document your protocols. Everybody has a responsibility. If there's a breach, if there's a problem, you certainly want to show that you've done your due diligence, that you've gone as far as you can go at the time to protect everybody involved in the process. The last thing you want is for somebody to realize that you didn't do something to protect them. That's a bad stain, and you don't want that for a number of different reasons. One, reputationally, it is just not good. And two, you can be sued if you're not doing everything that you can to make sure everybody in the process is fully protected. Now, as I said before, nobody is 100% secure all the time. But if you can show that you've done your due diligence here, that certainly goes a long way. Don't forget the mobile devices. 59% of businesses currently allowing BYOD, which is bring your own device. Plenty of businesses allow their employees to use personal phones in business. That's not always the greatest thing to do. And if you do allow it, they are a gaping hole in security. So you need to make sure that you keep mobile device iOS up to date. Make sure they are fully patched. They have all the security. They have the latest iOS operating system, or whether it's Android, whatever. Please do not forget mobile devices. They can be a gaping hole in security. Educate all employees. Don't assume they know what to do. Remember, we talked about the digital environment, making sure everybody understands what their role and responsibilities are. Same with security. Everybody in this office has a role when it comes to security. Whoever's manning the reception desk, all the way up to the owners, everybody and everybody in between, everybody has a responsibility there. Consider the cloud. If ultimately today you have your production system or anything else hosted locally on your servers, there can be a lot of problems with that. There are ways in for the bad people, the bad actors to do that. And you can never be usually as secure as some of these cloud companies like Azure or Microsoft, or AWS, Amazon Web Services. They spend millions and millions of dollars on security. So it may be something that you want to consider if you are keeping all your data and your documents on your local service. This one often gets forgotten these days. If you remember back 3 or 4 years ago when the CFPB was doing their big push on security, all the presentations certainly had an entry about restricting physical access. People don't talk about it so much now, but it's still extremely important. You really need to know who's walking through your office, who has access to your office after hours, things like that. Employees or whether anybody else have access to their office. Disgruntled employees these days is a problem, and it's something that's increasing in frequency. So please keep that in mind. Make sure you install anti-malware software along with your antivirus software that I hope that you have. That's something that really helps you and protects you against ransomware, which, again, I know everybody talks about wire fraud these days, but honestly, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing out there on a daily basis, ransomware right now is the biggest threat to this industry. So you need to talk to your IT people about what they're doing to help you to protect yourselves from ransomware. If you take nothing else from this presentation today, that's the one thing I want you to talk to your IT professionals about. You want to invest in supply chain validation. Basically what I'm talking about there is you want to know where you're getting your hardware. You don't want to get it from somebody off the street. Buying cheaper is not always buying better. Make sure that it's from a trusted source that you're getting your hardware from, because hardware can be infected before you get it. And that's been a problem out there in the world these days as well. Rethink your IT support. So I keep coming back to telling you to talk to your IT people. If you're not getting the answers that you like, if you're not getting the insurances that you like from your IT support, if you're not feeling comfortable with what they have in place, then reconsider your IT support and go someplace else. This is too important to let, hey, I've used them for so many years, that's great. Hey, they're my cousin, they're my uncle, they're a friend of the family, that type of thing. That doesn't make sense anymore, not in what's going on in today's world. And don't forget your remote workers, right? It's your responsibility. So if during the pandemic, if you are in fact having remote workers, and I know many title agents and attorneys are, don't forget about that, right? Make sure that they're doing everything that they should be doing at home. And we'll talk about this in a couple later slides. But they're doing what they can to not only protect themselves, but protect you and your business as well. And all the things that I'm going to be talking about today, and that I have talked about when it comes to security, is applicable in your personal lives as well. We are all targets in our personal lives. Don't ever forget that. So all the things that I talk about, most of the things that I talk about here are applicable in your personal lives. It's imperative that every employee make cybersecurity a top priority. I think that's about the third or fourth time I've said that. Hopefully that will be the last, and hopefully that's sunk in, but it is a top priority. All right, so let's talk about digital communication. If you remember in my stack slide, which was the C, which is communication, I've talked about how important it is, but these are some great stats, the state of mobile apps. So in in 2021 alone, there are 196 billion and plus 42 billion mobile apps would be downloaded from Google Play Store or Apple. 693 billion in revenue. The pandemic has people glued to the internet, with 89.2% of mobile time spent on mobile apps. What I'm pointing out here is that please don't forget your mobile security, because as we all spend much more time on our phones, it is just as important, if not more important, than the security on your desktops or your laptops. Digital communication, important. So not only for security, but again, remember I mentioned closing on the terms of the consumer, right? Making things easier for them, for the real estate broker, for the lender. Communication is key. And again, as we go more digital, communication becomes even more important. I don't want you guys to forget that. So why we do it? Well, we give proactive status to all involved, which is obviously invaluable. Cuts down on phone calls and unnecessary emails, which saves time on the back end, saves time for you and your employees answering emails, answering phone calls. Having a secure platform for text messaging and sharing data and documents. So when we talk about text messaging, you want to make sure you're talking about secure text messaging, and that's something you also should be talking to your IT people about. Even if you have nothing to say, even if there's no status, you look like you're watching out for them. Agents keep that control and that communication. So I often get pushback from agents and attorneys and say, oh, this digital process, Rick, I'm losing control of the transactions. I don't generally think that's true, because with proper communication and better communication, my belief is you actually get more control of what's going on. So, and you want to communicate always better with the real estate agents, right? For better transparency and status. They always want to know what's going on. Like I said before, they want to know when the closing is happening. They want to know when they're going to get paid. Keep people in the loop, even if you don't have an update. They love it, believe me. All right, so let's keep the security discussion going here. And a common myth about this is my current digital technology approach is good enough. I'm not sure that it's going to be. Is it really? If you haven't gone down this digital road, in fact, keeping security in mind while you're doing it, you really need to start talking about it. You really need to start understanding it. You really need to start testing it out and making sure you're comfortable with the technology, and everybody involved in it is comfortable with that technology. But one important fact, data security is more critical than ever. And as I said, it's absolutely your responsibility. So let's talk about the 10 cybersecurity myths that you need to stop believing. We all believe in some of this stuff, but if you believe in any of this, you need to stop. I don't have anything worth protecting. Yeah, you do. There's a lot of PPI data out there. You certainly have a lot of money that you're dealing with that you have to protect. You need to protect the integrity of the closing process. You have a lot to protect there. And again, in your personal lives as well, you may do online banking. You may do a lot of your stuff online like I do. There's a lot to protect there as well when it comes to your personal finances, anything else that you do there. I use security software, so I'm fine. Okay, hope it's up to date. I hope your virus software and your malware software is up to date. Sometimes what people tend to do is they buy it originally when they get their new laptop or their new desktop, and they make that first purchase into whatever that malware or virus scan software came, and they don't update it. They don't pay for the updates. They don't do what they need to do. You really need to make sure all that stuff is up to date, because as I said before, these bad actors are very intelligent. I always like to say I wish they used their smarts for good rather than evil, but they don't. And they are always finding new ways in, and we're always one step behind. So you need to make sure you do the proper investment in your security software. With all these data breaches, I have nothing left to protect. Well, that's not true. You're always getting new information in. There's always something for you to protect. Phishing scams are easy to spot. Not always, and many it's blackmail. So we have here at our company, the Fidelity family of companies, that we get phishing tests every month or so. And when I click on the right thing, I said, "Hey, Rick, good job keeping vigilant." These are things that you need to start doing. There are many emails out there. Emails are still the greatest threat when it comes to security, that offer free this, free that. As I joke around, and I can't remember if Georgia has Dunkin' Donuts or not, but what I always say is nobody needs a free donut. Stop everybody from clicking on something. This is part of the responsibility in everybody's office. You don't need that free donut. You don't need to take that survey to get in the for a $25 certificate. It's just not worth it. My friends on social media won't hurt me. Well, hopefully they wouldn't do it on purpose, but they may have been hacked unknowingly. Hackers are mysterious, scary features. Well, that may be true, but most organizations are well financed, and many of them are state sponsored as well. So they have many, many dollars behind them. I only go to mainstream sites, so I don't need security software. Every single site can potentially hide malware, everyone, whether you think it's safe and secure or not. So you have to keep that in mind. That's why you have the security software in place. I use complex passwords, still not good enough. I think later in the presentation, I'm going to talk about passwords a little bit, but mull that over in your minds a little bit. I know a fake voice when I hear one. Deep face technology can replicate most voices. This is a big one going on these days. I haven't heard it really affecting this industry as of yet, but deep fake technology can cobble together from recordings of CEOs and bosses and who else leaving voicemail, having you do something, maybe changing a routing number, things like that. That's something really, really to keep an eye on. Sooner or later, it'll start affecting this industry, and you have to make sure you're ready for that. That's what we always say: verify, 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 even if you think it came from the boss. I will know when something bad gets in my device or computer. Well, you may not. That CloudStar ransomware attack that I was talking about earlier, that showed up at the end of July, was actually sitting and waiting in their system for a couple of months before they actually pulled the trigger. And the reason the bad people do that is they want to see trends. They want to see where they can infect. They want to see where they can get the most bang from their buck. They are very patient in what they do. So you can have bad actors in your system right now. Again, another thing to talk to your IT people about, doing scans on your system and make sure there's nothing funky going on there. So let's go back and talk about the top cybersecurity statistics for 2020. Of course, 2021 is not quite over yet, so we don't have those, but these are kind of interesting. Half of all cyber attacks are targeted at small businesses. So most of our agents are small to mid-sized companies. And as I said before, the bad actors have figured out this industry and realize and hoping that these small to mid-sized businesses do not have the resources or the time to do what they have to do to protect themselves. And many don't. 500,000 Zoom user accounts were compromised and sold on the dark web forum. So Zoom was a big, huge thing over the past year and a half. 500,000 got out. Remote work has increased the average cost of a data breach by $137,000, right? Because there is other technology out there, other hardware that you have to be concerned about besides the hardware in your offices. 47% of employees cited distraction as a reason for falling for a phishing scam while working from home. Yeah, there's a lot of distractions at home. People have pets, people have kids, people have a spouse, somebody else, roommate, somebody else living with them. There's always distractions going on at home, sometimes more than the office. But you need to remind everybody working from home that they have to be extra diligent when it comes to thinking about security. There is a ransomware attack every 14 seconds. Up to 200 billion IoT devices will need securing by the end of this year. What is an IoT device? Internet of Things. So smart phones, right? Smart thermostats, smart TVs, smart refrigerators, smart washing machines, smart this, smart that. All these things are attached to the internet, and all these things can be compromised. This is especially important at home in your personal lives as well. If you have a Nest thermostat like I do, and I have a couple of smart TVs, I need to make sure that those are up to date with patch with their software. I also need to make sure that the passwords are changed on a regular basis, because that's the biggest hole when somebody plugs in a Nest thermostat and they don't change the default password. Guess who knows what that default password is? An IoT device can be attacked easily within the first 5 minutes, right? Why? Because somebody didn't change the default password. 95% of security breaches due to human error. 91% of attacks by cyber criminals start through email. I mentioned this before. It is still the biggest gaping hole when it comes to security. An increase of cyber attacks is common in a time of crisis in 2008, right? So remember what happened there. There was a huge uptick with cyber attacks, although not as sophisticated as it is today, right? Because that was what, 13 years ago already. But COVID-19 is no exception, and cybersecurity attacks in 2020 has followed suit to its economic recession predecessor. So yeah, COVID-19 has been a big opportunity for the bad people. There are email monitoring systems out there, right? Because I said 91% of attacks by cyber criminals start through email. I believe that this presentation will be sent out to everybody. This is a great site to look at these email monitoring systems. This is another discussion you should have with your IT folks when you get back to your office to see if it makes sense to put this in place. Okay, so what are the top 5 cybersecurity predictions for 2021? I think that some of these have already come to fruition. Global cybercrime damage predicted to hit 10.5 trillion, that's with its T, annually by 2025. Cost includes damage, destruction of data, stolen money, lost productivity, theft of intellectual property, blah, 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 blah. I could read this whole thing, but I think you get it. But more than all natural disasters and the sales of illegal drugs combined. Cybersecurity spending will exceed 1 trillion from 2017 through the end of this year. I think we've already hit that. The world will have 3.5 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs by the end of 2021. The cybersecurity unemployment rate is at 0% so far this year. So I always ask this when I do some of these presentations in purpose. I said in person. So I always say, hey, raise your hand if you have kids in high school or kids in college that have no idea what they want to do when they get older or when they graduate. This is it. If you have kids in high school, if you have kids in college that haven't quite figured out what they want to do for a career, and they have some aptitude for this, they're always going to have a job, and it's something they should be considering. Global ransomware damage costs predicted to reach 20 billion by the end of this year, up from 325 million just 6 years ago. The frequency of ransomware attacks on governments, businesses, and consumers will continue to rise over the next 5 years. Remember I said ransomware is the biggest problem? Yeah, it is. The human attack surface will reach 6 billion people by 2022. We have 8 billion people in the world. So yeah, almost everybody. Cybersecurity Ventures predicts there will be 6 billion internet users by 2022, 75% of the projected world population of 8 billion. And more than 7.5 billion internet users by 2030, 9% of the projected world population of 8.5. That should be billion, not million. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I take it back. 8.5 million, 6 years of age or older. The hackers smell blood now and not silicon. Still think passwords are not a problem. So yeah, I warned you I was going to talk about passwords, and let's do it. So what does it all mean? In the next 5 years, cybercrime will become the greatest threat to every person, place, and thing in the world. I bet most people, including myself, these days may consider COVID being the biggest threat, or climate change, or whatever else going on in the craziness of this world today. But cybercrime is only increasing, and it's only getting worse. Hackers are becoming increasingly sophisticated, and we are always behind in security. Understanding the cyber terminology, threats, and opportunities is critical for every person, every business across all industries, right? So again, talk to your IT people about this. Make sure that you understand what they're doing, and make sure if you believe they're not doing everything they need to, you need to give them a little kick in the behind, or find somebody else. You must provide advanced cyber training and education to everyone in your business. You are investing in companies' protection against cyber threats. So again, it is everybody's responsibility. And again, you're here, you're listening to me. Make sure you take what I'm talking about back to everybody in your office, they understand. And use spaced repetition. We all get lazy, we all get complacent. And we all may start not doing some things that we should be doing. Remind everybody on a regular basis the responsibilities that they have. So let's talk about working from home, and I'm going to zip through these pretty quickly. So for those of you who do have remote workers, you need to keep this in mind, and you need to make sure that everybody's doing these things. So you want to protect devices with an antivirus solution. Be careful of the free ones. Again, why it's free, right? It's not going to be good. They're going to sell your information. You want to make sure you update applications and operating systems. You want to configure Wi-Fi encryption for your home Wi-Fi, again, in your personal lives. But if you have remote workers, you want to change your router login and password, certainly from the default one when you get it, but I would do it on a regular basis as well. You don't want to use VPN in cafes. You want to use VPN in cafes and co-working spaces because public Wi-Fi is just a big problem. Lock your device before walking away. This is always good practice. Enforce session timeouts on software with sensitive data. You should be doing this remotely. You should be doing this in your offices as well. You want to make sure everybody uses corporate services for email, messaging, and all of the work. The last thing you want is people using their personal email for business. Because you have no control over their personal email. You don't know whether they've been hacked or compromised or what else. So make sure everybody is using their business email account when they are conducting business. Stay vigilant with emails and texts. There's a lot of phishing going on these days, right? Remember, nobody needs a free donut. Track your progress. There are a lot of transactions out there. Of course, make sure you create a comfortable workspace. Keep the same routine and security practices you do in the office, right? Again, we all get lazy. We all think, hey, I'm at home, I don't have to do these things. Wrong. Separate work and personal devices. Again, I keep coming back to that, but personal devices are a gaping hole in security. Make sure you're backing up your data, even at home. Again, many things can happen. Computers break. They do. You can get hacked. You may have some important documents in your personal lives. You may have important business documents on your laptop at home that you're using for business. Make sure they are backed up. Use secure messaging apps. Again, make sure they're secure. Patch all of your systems. Microsoft, as you know, has their Patch Tuesday. Most operating systems these days, where Microsoft will automatically run the patches for you. But again, this is a discussion you want to have with your IT professionals. Make sure everything is up to date, making sure all the servers in your office are patched, and make sure all the laptops, everything else as well. And that does include printers and scanning devices and copiers as well. They all have software in them. You want to use a data blocker when charging up at a public phone charging station. There's something called juice jacking. You probably haven't heard much about this lately, but it's still there, especially at an airport. If you're plugging your computers in, my suggestion is find the outlet on the wall. That's going to be safe for the most part. Always use multi-factor authentication. Use strong pass phrases, not just password, long. The longer the better, and turn off bandwidth hungry applications when not needed. Again, if you're working from home, you have kids there as well, you have somebody else working also on the internet, that's going to slow down your internet speed. You want to make sure you turn off those internet hungry applications. And what you want to do is make sure you keep it in close contact with your employee or your employees, depending on which side you're on. You know, some people sometimes feel a little extra remote when they're working from home, and you want to make sure that they're feeling part of the team. So as we start going back into the office, just remember that the traditional office isn't going to disappear anytime soon. Not all workers will choose to stay remote. In fact, research shows that about half of them will actively want to come back to the office. The immediate priority will always be health and safety, right? You guys know this. Investment in voice-assisted technology will rise to enable contactless operations. There are different technologies out there these days. An Alexa type app. There's one here in the title insurance space.
Sorry, I don't
Call-
know
Call on it. Well, Alexa just answered me, and I know she's on the ball. Alana is something you may want to look into. That uses texting technology and voice-assisted technology to be able to answer many questions that may come from your clients or the real estate brokers or lenders that you're dealing with. Something good to think about. Companies will equip employees with new tools to make better use of office space, more digital tools. Remember, we talked about all these things going digital. That's all coming. The market for connected whiteboard devices will surge. Again, as people, when there's a combination of people working from home or working in the office. Internet of Things technology will create offices that boost employee productivity. All these things, again, I don't need to read all this stuff, but all these Internet of Things makes productivity better if you know how to use them and making sure they're secure. The out of office will be born, flexible workspace ecosystems. And what we mean by that is, shared spaces that people may want to go to if they can't get what they need to get done in their home for whatever reason. So let's talk about email spoofing for a minute. Remember, I talked about 91% of the problem with data breaches and malware and ransomware comes from email. Well, email spoofing is the act of sending emails with forged sender address, right? So you guys know what this is. You just have to be aware of this. You just have to make sure everybody in the office is paying extra attention. The use of throwaway accounts when registering sites. That way your private email addresses won't appear in shady lists used for sending spoofed email messages. I mean, these are just kind of different things that people are using. You want to make sure your email password is strong and complex enough. And again, I use pass phrases. It makes it exponentially harder for the bad people, the bad actors to figure it out. You want to inspect email headers when you are suspect of an email and making sure you do a rollover with your mouse, make sure everything looks good there. There's not much you can do if somebody spoofed your email to send spam. Luckily, your real account is safe. Just don't forget to change your password or passphrase regularly to prevent real hacking. So again, I think this presentation will be sent out, but there are some great secure email providers out there that can help in protecting against email spoofing. So email security gateways monitoring. Email is the number one target used by hackers to gain access. These different monitoring tools actually use AI, artificial intelligence or machine learning, to scan all your emails. They're looking for common threads, common problems, common issues that they learn what a hacking email can be. This is a great software that does this. Proofpoint, Barracuda, Iron Scales is another one. So what we always say here is I never recommend different softwares of a technology. What I do is educate. And I always recommend all of you educating yourself on what's going on. I'd look into all of these and to see what they can do to help you scan your email system again, because that is one of the greatest security gaps. All right, so let's quickly talk about ransomware. I know you've heard me mention it a bunch of times. Ransomware is a type of malware that prevents users from accessing their system and demands ransom in order to regain access. Ransomware was developed in the 80s. Today, ransomware demands a payment be sent via cryptocurrency or credit card and attackers targets individual basis. You can get ransomware through malicious spam. That's used to deliver malware. A whole bunch of different ways. You can get it Word documents, websites. This is why I implore you to make sure you have malware scanning, virus scanning, and that you're doing backups. There are three main types of ransomware. Scareware includes road security software, tech supports, pop-up messaging claiming that malware is discovered. That's kind of older stuff. Screen lockers means you're frozen out of your PC entirely if unsigning computer full size appear. We've seen that a lot in the wild. However, the FBI would not freeze you out of your computer or demand a payment for legal activity. This is the most common one going on right now, encrypting files, demanding payment in order to decrypt and redeliver. No security software system or store or can return them unless you pay the ransom. Only hope is a backup if you don't want to pay. Crypto ransomware payments. You can see the explosion of payments. This is probably not even all of it. This was done early in 2001, the 81 million. My guess is we are well past the 406 million by now. Crypto ransomware payments skyrocketed in 2020, up 337. And it's just going to go up. Remember, the other things that ransomware people do, because again, they are smart and they've realized that many people have done what they're supposed to be doing by having malware or backing up the data and say, hey, look, I backed up my data. I don't have to pay you. Well, they'll say, well, that's all great, but guess what? We have your data as well. And there may be a lot of MPPI data on there. There may be a lot of things that you don't want out there in the world, and they can do that as well. So again, doing the things that you can do to protect yourself from getting ransomware in the first place is your best bet. Thinking that, well, if I have a backup, I'm good. Yeah, that's truly helpful, but you want to stop it right from the beginning. So ransomware attacks have become more prevalent than credit card theft for the first time ever. Simplest and quickest way for criminals to make money from compromised networks. They are not only encrypting data, they are stealing it. Ransomware attacks are successful because companies pay. If nobody paid, look, they wouldn't be doing this anymore. The UK is considering outlaw ransomware payments. I'm not sure how they're going to get away with doing that, but they're thinking about it. So what do you do? Right? So I get this all, well, Rick, there's so much I have to keep track of. Well, I've talked about a whole bunch of stuff that you can be doing, but let's go over them again, specific to ransomware. Make sure your networks are patched and up to date, backups up to date, entire network kept off-site and tested. I can't emphasize that enough. Change default password, segment your network, help stops the spread, use multi-factor authentication, train staff to stop clicking, know what's attached to your network, Internet of Things, etc., things like that. Don't pay the ransom, hacked again. They already know you're willing to pay. There are additional costs around restoring the network. Have a plan in place if you do get hacked. Again, discussions with your IT people. All right, what to do? Maintain backups. Backing up is important, right? Single most effective way of recovering from ransomware. Be sure to routinely test and your backups and verify your backups are infected before rolling back. Develop plans and policies. You want to have a plan. You don't want to be scratching your head if there's a problem. You want to review port settings. This is a discussion to have with your IT folks as well. Many ransomware variants take advantage of the most desktop protocol, which is RDP, which is port 3389. These other ports. Talk to your IT folks about which ports are open in your network and why they're open, and find out whether you have more open than you need to. Harden your endpoints, ensure your systems are configured with security in mind. Keep systems up to date, patch. I think that's the third time I've said that, so 3 times patch is 9. Train the team, it's everybody's responsibility. Ransomware and malware protection. Malwarebytes ransomware, this is a great website as well. There's a great guide here from the government, how to help stop ransomware. As well. These are great resources if you have the time. Remember, I talked about resources to protect yourself. It's pretty important that you spend some time here. So secure communications, I talked about texting, right? Do you secure portals to communicate still using generic email accounts? I certainly hope not. Do you secure messaging apps, e-closings? The digital process will force you to comply ultimately. These are all secure messaging apps that you may want to look into. Certified for wire protection, short track. Those are both portals that you can use as well for wire information and things like that. Texting, 50% of consumers believe companies need to fundamentally transform engagement with customers. 90% prefer to engage with a brand via text messaging. 98% of texts are opened via 20% of emails. 80% convenience is a top reason. Again, proactively managing passwords. I'm not going to go through this whole list. I know we're running up against time. Passwords, real important. Long passphrases, exponentially harder to figure out. And again, for your remote, your mobile devices as well, right? Exponentially harder for those to get hacked, the longer the mobile password is as well. Again, how about your smartphone? So if you have 4 digits, right? This is how they hack in. It takes them 7 minutes. With AI and machine learning to figure out how to get into your smartphone. 6 digits, it'll take them 11 hours, 8 digits, 46 days, 10 digits, 12.5 years. You get where I'm going with this. Up to date, again, all this stuff, really, really important. I know I'm rushing through it because we're up against it, but username and passwords are a huge, huge problem out there. Even still today. Remember SolarWinds blames intern for SolarWinds 1, 2, 3 password lapse. Yeah, big problem. Patch. We talk about it. It's easy to do. A discussion to have with your IT folks. Make sure everything is patched up to date. Your home systems as well. All right, so this is going to be my last screen on this, and this is just a reminder of the things that you can do to protect yourselves and your business. I'm sorry, one more after this one. I always forget about this one. Backups, business continuity. Make sure you have a business continuity plan in place. Test your backups on a regular basis. And I promise this is the last screen. Stop kids, stop everybody from clicking on everything. Don't let anyone access their personal email on your network. Do not allow the use of removable devices like flash drives on your network. Destroy all the hard drives on computers and copiers. Remember, all copiers have hard drives in them as well. Proactively manage your passwords. Use passphrases and long smartphone passwords. Make sure you use multi-factor authentication to log in. Encrypt your email or use a secure portal. Use an email monitoring system. It's always a good idea. Create a whitelist of website used in your business. Much easier to create a whitelist of websites for people to go to than try to create a blacklist of bad ones. It can easily be maintained. You can easily add or take away. Don't let anyone access their social media on your network. Never a good idea, unless you're using it for business, of course. Enable multi-factor authentication on your personal email accounts. I have a Gmail account that I use. I have multi-factor authentication on it. It's easy, it's free. It took me about 12 seconds to set up. Conduct background checks, use secure messaging apps, patch. If any of you out there, I keep this on here because I know there are some agents out there and attorneys still using Windows 7. If you are, you need to stop and you need to get off because there's no more security patches coming from Windows 7. Update printer firmware and update older printers. They all have firmware and security on them as well. Don't download free virus scan software. It's a reason they're free. They sell your information, but have updated virus malware software. Educate employees on their security and responsibilities. I keep harping on that. And please have a business continuity plan, and please test your backups on a regular basis. I know that was a whole lot of stuff. And again, I believe all this information will be given to you. But with that, Lane, I am all set.
Rick, thank you very much for the reminders on best practices in cybersecurity area. As Rick was heading on, we've reached the end of our CLE here. Thank you again to all the speakers. And again, we'd particularly like to thank National Title Insurance of New York as the sponsor of today's CLE, which made everything possible. Thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude today's webinar. Thank you for joining and have a great afternoon.